Hi, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Robin Runge. I use she, her pronouns, and I have the privilege this year, as you know, to be the chair of the ABA Civil Rights and Social Justice section. And one of the esteemed privileges of that role is getting to host these amazing chair chats with phenomenal leaders in our legal community. And today is yet another example of that. I am thrilled to have our two guests, and we're going to be focusing on a really important issue and something that's near and dear to my heart and has been pivotal in my career as a lawyer, which is the Legal Services Corporation. We have the privilege of having two amazing folks join us, John Levi and Judge Yang, both of whom have played pivotal roles in ensuring a legal access for all in the United States. And we're going to hear about those efforts from their different perspectives today. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to share a little bit about each of our speakers before we begin our chat. So first, I have the privilege of introducing John Levi, who has been at Sydney's Labor, Employment, and Immigration Practice for 50 years. And throughout his career, he has represented major professional and financial services firms, national and multinational corporations, as well as a host of medium-sized and smaller corporations in employment and labor matters before numerous federal and state courts, government agencies, and arbitration forums. John frequently counsels clients regarding the full range of employment issues, including their internal policies and governance. John was appointed by President Obama to the 11-member board of directors of the National Legal Services Corporation and confirmed by the Senate and elected as chairman of the LSC board on April 7th, 2010. He has been reconfirmed and reelected to the post and is now the longest serving chair in the history of the Legal Services Corporation, which marks its 50th anniversary this year. John is a past chair of Sidley Law's School Recruiting Committee and currently co-leads the firm's committee overseeing its adoption of the Canoon Magnet School, a Chicago public school. He was elected in 2013 as a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, and in 2016 as a member of the American Law Institute. And John has just so many awards, recognizes his incredible commitment and service. He was honored as the first recipient of the Abner and Zoe Mikva Corporate Citizenship Award given by Mikva Challenge 2011. I had the privilege of knowing Mr. Mikva, so that's a tremendous honor. He is a recipient of the Harvard Law School Society of Illinois' 2010 Role Model Award, the 2004 Abraham Lincoln Moravitz Linda Hand Volunteer Award, and was given an honorary diploma by the Francis W. Parker School in 2003. Parker also honored John by naming him the title of Chief Advancement Officer after him, and in 2014 elected him a life trustee of the school. He's also received the University of Rochester's 2014 College of Arts and Sciences Distinguished Alumnus Award. And in 2015, he was again honored by the Harvard Law School Society of Illinois and received the Society's highest honor, the Jerry S. Solvay Award, in recognition of commitment to public service and the highest ideals of the profession. John was also recognized by the Shriver National Center on Poverty Law as he was given the 2016 Sargent Shriver Award for Equal Justice. And he received the American Bar Association's John Minor Wisdom Award in May 2019 and the Legal Aid Chicago 2019 Champion of Justice Award in that same year in June. And the Council for Advancement and Support of Education awarded John the 2024 Seymour Preston Award, an honor bestowed on exceptional commitment and leadership in developing honorary support to educational opportunities. He's listed in Who's Who's in America and Who's Who in American Law, and is recognized in the 2014 and through 2024 editions of the Best Lawyers in America in Labor Law Management. So John, thank you first for your amazing career and your commitment to service and equal justice and civil rights for all. I just want to say how privileged we are to have you here. And thank you for your incredible leadership at the Legal Services Corporation, having served as the longest term leader of that board. We were also joined by Judge Bryant Yang, and I'm just so happy to have Judge Yang with us. He is here because he is also amazing. And in this context of our ABA world, which is relevant, he's the current chair of SCLAID, which is a wonderful organization that has worked closely with Legal Services Corporation. SCLAID stands for the Standing Committee on Legal Aid and Indigent Defense. And I should say that the Civil Rights and Social Justice section stands together with these two esteemed institutions. And so without further ado, I think we should go ahead and get started into our conversation. And my leadoff conversation for both of you, as I mentioned in this introduction, this is an amazing year for the Legal Services Corporation. It is the 50th anniversary, and this is a wonderful opportunity to look back a little bit and look forward. And so I'd love to hear from both of you. As Legal Services, the Legal Services Corporation, which is funded by the Legal Services Corporation Act, is the single largest funder of civil legal aid for low-income Americans in the nation. It has had just tremendous impact. It's one of the most impactful organizations ensuring equal justice for all. And I think for many of us, it would be helpful to learn a little bit more about its origins and explain how it came into existence. If you could, for us in 1974, with the support of the American Bar Association. And John, I think I'll start with you for that, if that's all right with you, Judge Yang.
Certainly. And thank you so much for that introduction, Robin, and your own service. Look, I have been very privileged to be the chair of the Legal Services Corporation for these past 14-something years. And the Legal Services Corporation really was the brainchild of folks in the Office of Economic Opportunity back in the Johnson War on Poverty. Sergeant Shriver was the head of the Office of Economic Opportunity, and they developed the Legal Services Program then. And actually, following the Johnson administration, the Nixon administration, I should also say, at the urging of folks like Secretary Rumsfeld, kept the Legal Services Office and had it incorporated as the Legal Services Corporation as one of the last acts of the Nixon administration. And July 25th of 1974, we were enacted. As a separate 501c3 federally funded civil legal services program to help across the country provide funds to a national network of civil legal aid offices. Now, you should understand that up until that time, there was just a patchwork of legal aid offices across the country, because as we all know as lawyers, in the criminal system, you're entitled to a lawyer, but in the civil system, you are not. And for low-income folks, the opportunity to have counsel, they have to go present themselves, find a lawyer at a legal aid clinic, and that's what we were dealing with back then. I want to say the ABA had a huge hand in our founding, because the president of the ABA back in 1964 was someone named Lewis Powell, and he was determined that there should be federal funding for civil legal aid, and he put his own reputation and so much of his person power behind seeing this come to fruition. And of course, we quote him all the time. But that's kind of the origin, and that's, I don't know, Judge Yang, whether you want to add to that, but that's our history. And going back till, and as you can see, the ABA meeting is right on top of our 50th anniversary.
I think Chair Levi summed it up accurately. But before I kind of add to that, I want to thank Chair Robin Runge, Associate Director Ali Gilsgard, and Jason Bale, Director of ABA Legal Services, for really organizing this wonderful event and for inviting both Chair Levi and myself to participate. SCLAID was founded in 1920. It's the oldest standing committee in the American Bar Association. The two founders were Reginald Smith, who wrote the seminal book Justice and the Poor, that really created legal aid as we know it across the nation. And the other founder was Charles Edmund Hughes, who later became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. But as John was stating, one of the things that SCLAID is most proud of institutionally is that around 1974, when there was movement towards the creation of the Legal Services Corporation, the ABA and SCLAID, through its full support and brought forth its creation, which was by bipartisan support.
Thank you both for sharing. It's so interesting to hear the histories of each of these entities, right? I mean, I think, Chair Levy, I think so many people think, oh, Legal Services Corporation is new, right? It's only been around, and it's like, no, 1974, right? I think that's really important. And the origins that you just shared, coming out around the war against poverty is so central to its mission and its vision in our society, which is that everyone has a right to justice and has a right to access legal services. And so I think that's so important. And Judge Yang, I really want to do a better job of sharing more about your background. I mentioned that you're a judge. You're a judge in Los Angeles County Superior Court, and you've had a tremendous legal career of your own, working at Morrison and Forrester, and as a prosecutor in Burbank in the city attorney's office, and held several other positions. So I just want to lift up your long history of service as well. And the thing I wanted to bring into this is the Civil Rights and Social Justice section was founded in 1966. So it's just interesting. And our mission, dovetails so nicely with this conversation. We are the only entity in the American Bar Association membership entity, which is dedicated solely to civil rights, civil liberties, and human rights issues. And clearly, legal services and human rights go hand in hand. So thank you for giving us that history. So I'd love to just talk a little bit about the Legal Services Corporation's impact on ensuring access to justice and on civil legal aid across the country in the past 50 years. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, both Chair Levy and Judge Yang, from your different positions of experience, and then hear if there are particular areas that the Legal Services Corporation is prioritizing now or has in recent years. I know about the incredible focus on veterans and rights for veterans, ensuring access to everything from child support to housing, but also survivors of domestic violence, which is my expertise. And I know I personally have benefited in my career from that leadership from Legal Services Corporation. So please, if you could share, Chair Levy first, a little bit about kind of that perspective, right? 50 years and the impact. Where would we be today without the Legal Services Corporation? I can't even imagine.
Well, let me just say, the Legal Services Corporation is itself the largest funder of civil legal aid, but the actual work is done by our 130 grantees with 890 offices and 10,000 hardworking lawyers and paraprofessionals all across the country that show up every day to handle what comes in the door. And unfortunately, as we have heard over the last number of years, they have to turn away so many folks because of a lack of resources. And it was actually our predecessor board that coined the phrase the justice gap, having done a study of our grantees in terms of who they were turning away. We then actually were the first board to embark on, because we are a 501c3, the raising of private funds, not to compete with our grantees and not to get in the way at all of the federal grant, which incidentally I come back to, but is not what it ought to be. to actually have professional studies of the gut and hard figures to quantify what the justice gap is about, but also to create task forces, as we have across time now during our tenure, to help our grantees with the issues that we were hearing from them were the most pressing, or in the case of, for example, opioid, that came on the scene. We wanted to help our grantees understand. It's still, unfortunately, a significant issue. You mentioned veterans. We had a veterans task force. We have, unfortunately, so many low-income veterans seeking help with just obtaining their benefits, or they have PTSD and they don't know what to do to take the next step. But I would just tell you, currently, housing and housing issues, housing insecurity, really are taking up a huge amount of the bandwidth of our grantees, something I think approaching, if not eclipsing 40% of the matters. And one of the things that we've learned about housing, and which also paints the gravity of this picture, when in housing matters, what we've learned through our studies, 90% of the time, if you have a trained person, representative helping you, you as a family will have a favorable outcome. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to stay in the house, that particular, but you will have a favorable outcome, and there will be security for you. The flip,
Wow.
if you do not have that help, 90% of the time, you're going to be out on the street. And that 90-90 is not what American equal justice is supposed to be about. But you asked what are the major issues, and of course, you have to, there are many other. Domestic violence is clearly a major issue. So is debt collection. These are volume matters. Last year, we helped, I think it's something like 1.8 million Americans. But you know what? If our funding had been greater and our grantees had had more resources, we would have been able to handle twice that number. Unfortunately, we had to turn away that many people. And so I don't know, Judge Yang, whether you want to add to that, but the SCLADE committee has been right there with us. We report to them every year. We meet. We have an annual meeting with them, and they've had our back. And we really appreciate what they have done for us to protect us and to also help get the word out. That's the other thing. Getting the word out in the profession and beyond is really important, so that people, you can't solve a problem you don't understand. So that is really having more people understand the gravity of this. And I want to thank Judge Yang and now your committee, Robin. It's really very important that we understand what we're jeopardizing here, which is the rule of law ultimately.
I want to just piggyback on what John stated. John, it really is such a privilege for me personally, but also SCLADE as an institution to support the work of LSC. And just as an example of what John was stating earlier, LSC did a lot of work on evictions and tenants' rights, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, and recognizing the importance of that area. SCLADE created an eviction task force, and one of our key players on that task force was president of LSC, Ron Flagg. And that task force made a number of recommendations that ultimately led to 10 guidelines or guidelines relating to evictions, which the ABA House of Delegates eventually adopted. And so that's a sort of a great example of synergy where LSC identifies an area through their grantees, and Slade and the ABA as a whole is able to help support. And the impact LSE has is profound, right? John talked about 1.8 million Americans that were served by LSE grantees. And I want to just briefly note that I think LSC's own research, I think it's published in the Justice Gap, provides that, when attorney representation is provided, litigants are 6.5 times more likely to win their cases. And in the situation of tenants in eviction cases, it's 96% of the time the cases settled favorably or resolved favorably. And that's such an amazing number if you really think about it.
Yes, no, thank you so much for really helping us better understand, Chair Levy, and judging how pivotal the Legal Services Corporation is and how it works. As you said, right, Chair Levy, like it's a funder. It receives, right, funding from Congress, and then your job is to be the steward of that. And you mentioned there are thousands of lawyers around the country who are in the trenches every day. I have to say I was one of them, with dockets too big, with wait lists of years. We're exhausted, but it was the best job I've ever had. I say that to anyone who will listen to me. The best job I ever had was as a staff attorney at Legal Aid. It was some of the hardest work I've ever done, but it was some of the most rewarding. And to see what you're describing is so important. I just want to lift that up again, even though through the ABA's support and your incredible leadership, Chair Levy, we've been able to continue to see the Legal Services Corporation funded. It's not enough. They are turning away many, many more people who need services than those they are able to serve. I mean, and I don't mean it's like 1 to 2. I see numbers as 1 to 10, as high as 1 to 10. And I think the other thing that you're helping us understand is, why is this so important? Why is legal representation so important? And as you lifted up first, Judge Chair, and then Chair Levy, and then you said, Judge Yang, housing, right, we know is pivotal. I mean, I believe we have a human right. That's just me. And if we know that when you have a lawyer, right, you are 9 times more likely, 96% of those folks are going to have a better outcome. That's tremendous, and really tells us the impact of your leadership and of the Legal Services Corporation. And as I mentioned, I've worked with survivors of domestic violence, and what we unfortunately know is domestic violence is one of the primary, if not the primary, reason why women and children become homeless in this country. And so I've, again, seen firsthand the incredible impact, but we need more support, right? And so that leads to my final question for today, which is, I know folks listening to us today are going to want to know what to do. They are going to hear some about this, maybe some of them for the first time, maybe for some of them for the first time in a while, right? Or for the first time at this level of depth of understanding, right? How do we as individuals, as members of the American Bar Association, support each of you and the work you're doing to ensure that as many people as possible have access to justice?
Well, if I could answer that, one of the things that our board, realizing when we came into office, the gravity of this crisis, and ourselves, not who had been doing their own pro bono and been aware of the issues in their communities, but not understanding fully the gravity and the numbers. But we went out, as I said, and used that 501c to develop these studies and to show this. Well, the most important thing now is, and we established 2 auxiliary groups. One, the Leaders Council, and the Emerging Leaders Council, because, and this is where the ABA and all of you come into, we need more folks in leadership positions across this country and who are engaged with the law to understand the gravity of this crisis and to actually pay attention to it in their own communities, do what they can to help support our funding, which is nowhere near what it needs to be. And really, if you all would pay attention and become engaged in, it's not a heavy lift, do your own pro bono, but pay attention to what is happening and how many folks are in fact being served and how many are being turned away. The orderly functioning of the justice system is at stake here, folks. Or we just had a hearing on the justice gap a few days ago in Washington to hear the Chief Justice of Texas talk about what's happening in state courts across this country, where 75% of the cases, one or both parties are unrepresented. This is a functioning of the courts. We are not designed to be that kind of a system, and we absolutely have to do better. So I would say for the ABA members, please, each of you, pay attention to this crisis. It's a crisis that has solution out there. And it's within our grasp, but we all need to work hard to achieve it. And I have to say again, the partnership we've had with the Standing Committee on Legal Aid and Indigent Defendants, when the SCLAID Committee stepped up and said, we're going to have a regular meeting with you now annually, because we understand the gravity of this crisis and we want to do what we can. And they've been paying attention all through my tenure. And I cannot thank you enough, and so appreciate the work of your committee, Judge.
I wanted to add some numbers to show the gravity of what Chair Levi was speaking to. So for the fiscal year of 2024, Congress appropriated $560 million. What LSC was asking to meet the needs of low-income and poor Americans, the civil legal aid need of Americans, was $1.797 billion for the fiscal year 2025. And so that's the disparity that John was talking about. And the impact of that disparity is, as I understand it from LSC's Justice Gap report, 1 million children are turned away. A million children in poverty are turned away. 1.1 million individuals and families facing evictions are turned away. 140,000 veterans and 550,000 victims of domestic violence are turned away by grantees because there's just not enough funding. And so there's a history of ABA members, rising to the moment, rising to the call of need. Back in like the 1980s, there was a movement to defund Legal Services Corporation, and the American Bar Association showed up in mass in Washington, D.C. and said that that's not what is appropriate, that equal justice under the law requires proper funding for civil legal aid. And so I would encourage everybody to pay attention and to get involved.
Thank you both so much. And I think that is the call, right? And there's so many different ways of getting involved. I live, as I mentioned at the top of this program, in the District of Columbia. My Legal Services Corporation funded entity is Neighborhood Legal Services. I know exactly where their offices are. I know how to reach them. I know how to call them and offer my help and do whatever they need me to do so that they can continue to do their work. I'm from Southern Illinois. That's Prairie State Legal Aid. I've known them since I was 5 years old because they were bringing food to families in my neighborhood when I was a child. And they were, with that food, they were bringing offering of assistance. How can we help you? What's the status of your housing? What do you need? And then when I was a baby lawyer in San Francisco, it was Bay Area Legal Aid. So I have personally on the ground contributed in whatever ways that I can. Even as a lawyer, I worked for them, but then also throughout my career now as a law professor, I continue to reach out. I run a workers' rights clinic in Washington, D.C., and I take referrals from legal aid organizations, and I work closely with them. We coordinate. But then the other thing, just lifting up what Judge Yang you just said, which is there's the American Bar Association has a long history of prioritizing the funding, the full funding of Legal Services Corporation. And that remains our priority, and we need to continue to use our voices because, as you said, Chair Levy, so well, the rule of law is at risk. When we have such a disproportionate number of our population unable to access justice, we are at a tipping point, and that's really the call to action that I heard from each of you today. I just want to thank you again for your time today to bring light on this and to recognize the 50th anniversary of this tremendous institution and the powerful partnership that has existed between the American Bar Association, SCLAID, and throughout the American Bar Association's membership and the Legal Services Corporation. So thank you both so much for what you do every day.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having us on your program today.
Thank you.